Rabies. What?
Rabies.
It comes as a surprise to no one, but viruses have been around since basically forever, and we've been plagued by them for thousands of years. But of the thousands of viruses out there, which one is the deadliest of them all? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your bloodthirsty demon of a poodle might harbor none but the deadliest disease on Earth. That's right.
Your dog's gonna murder you.
Every year, about 10,000 people all around the world get rabies. And do you know how many people have survived throughout human history? About 10. 10 people have survived this disease, which is otherwise a guaranteed death sentence. And the main reason why is because rabies is a disease that directly attacks the brain. Now, when a person is first bitten, they'll have no real way of telling whether the dog was actually rabid or not, so anyone with even a speck of common sense, and, God willing, health insurance, otherwise they probably won't eat for the next month or two, will consult their doctor about it. Now, the symptoms of rabies take a really long time to show up, about 2 to 3 months. Between that time, you'll be feeling A-okay, healthy even. But once rabies reaches your central nervous system, all hell is broken loose. At the start, you'll come down with a high fever, as well as an unexplained tingling or burning sensation at the site of the wound. But then the furious stage kicks in. By the way, rabies is the closest we've gotten to what is essentially a brain-eating zombie parasite. It causes inflammation of the brain, and over the course of 1 to 2 weeks, patients will suffer from a multitude of amazing symptoms, starting with restlessness, agitation, difficulty breathing, confusion, foaming at the mouth, hallucinations, seizures, followed by stupor, which is a state of near unconsciousness where the patient is completely unresponsive. One of the scariest symptoms of this disease, however, is hydrophobia, which is also one of the true tells of a rabies patient. The disease paralyzes the muscles of the throat, rendering you unable to swallow. That's right, any food or water that you try taking in at this stage will most likely be violently spat out, at the same time causing violent spasms in your throat, causing you to choke. Once these symptoms appear, the chance of death is basically 100%, alright? 10 people have survived this stage. So, why aren't we all dead? Well, on July 6, 1885, humanity went big brain time, effectively beating the rabies virus. On that day, a very smart French guy called Louis Pasteur injected a boy with a vaccine that he made himself from the flesh of dead rabbits because the boy was bitten by a rabid dog. And because he was vaccinated before symptoms showed up, he became the first rabies survivor. Pasteur is also the reason why we don't get horrible bloody diarrhea every time we eat a bowl of cereal, but that's a topic for a different episode. So yeah, we have a widely available rabies vaccine, and we also learned to avoid animals that look like this. So yeah, that's great. Now you may be asking yourself, but if this is COVID series, then why are you talking about rabies? You may have realized by now that COVID really doesn't compare to rabies in terms of deadliness. As of writing the script on July 1st, about 13 million people have been infected, but looking at the statistics, not a large percentage of those cases actually end in death. Now, when COVID first appeared, many people saw it as just another flu, but this just isn't true. COVID has a case fatality rate of about 3 to 4%, depending on the age group, of course, whereas the flu has a fatality rate of only 0.1%. This means that COVID is 30 times deadlier than the flu, so you can't really compare these two viruses. But still, it's a lot less than 100%. Nonetheless, we've heard multiple times that the symptoms of COVID are flu-like, but what does that actually mean? And for months now, we've seen graphs of COVID cases spiking up and up into oblivion. But of the millions of people that have been infected, few have gotten to know their stories. So, what's it like to have COVID? And to help me answer this question, I'll be joined by none other than a COVID survivor. Please welcome to the show, Dave. He says hi. Anyways, it was just before New Year's Eve. Dave was eagerly awaiting the clock to strike 12 to welcome in the new year. A new year of dreams, opportunities, and ambitions. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is taking too long. And then fireworks. Lots and lots of fireworks. Wow. Good times. Little did Dave know about the clown fiesta that 2020 was to become. So COVID appeared in China, but this wasn't something Dave was really concerned about. It wasn't until a couple months later that he really felt the virus's presence. It was around that time he fell ill. It might have been that he unknowingly touched an infected surface and then touched his nose or eyes. But anyways, he wasn't feeling too well. Runny nose, sneezing all the time. A mountain of tissues was building up by his bed. He was able to pass most of the time by watching Netflix. Or K-dramas if he's a horrible person. But he had to call in sick to work that day. Anyways, within a few days, he actually started to get better. His nose was clearing up, and he felt a lot less like a cheese grater was stuck in his throat. His motivation to work was back. But of course, 2020 simply won't allow that. COVID patients actually go through a phase where they start feeling better again, and then the real sickness hits. Dave started getting throbbing headaches. He fell back in bed, but this time it was different. This time he couldn't watch K-dramas. In fact, he couldn't even reach for the remote because it felt like an anvil was being placed on his joints. He was rooted in bed, getting up only occasionally to throw up. And throughout this time, he constantly felt chills everywhere. Hiding under several blankets couldn't solve the problem. It was only days later that he was hit by pneumonia. Dave found himself collapsed in bed, gasping for air. Now, I doubt too many of you have had pneumonia before, so let me explain to you what it feels like. Now, imagine Muhammad Ali uppercuts you right in the gut with his left arm. Cool. Now that all the air from inside you has been knocked out, try regaining it, not by breathing normally, but from a single plastic straw in your mouth. Yeah, the point is you can't breathe, because Dave felt like he was breathing through a straw 24/7. So after all this, he was finally admitted to the hospital, where he tested positive for COVID-19. There, Dave lay in the isolation ward, where a ventilator was bleeping next to him. Throughout this time, he was drifting in and out of consciousness, as his body wasn't getting enough oxygen. He went through a bunch of tests every single day. The nurses checked his blood pressure with a sphygmomanometer, and they also gave him a bunch of multivitamins to help out his immune system. Dave always felt a lot less lonely when someone else was in the room, but he had little hope in survival. His body had no energy, and he couldn't help but think about his friends and family and what they would do if he didn't make it. These were very tough times for Dave. However, Dave was lucky. He was young, and his immune system fought back. Within a few weeks, he got better, and he could finally breathe normally again. 2 weeks he spent at the hospital, and he walked out a COVID survivor. What? What's that, Dave? Dave says he's infinitely grateful to have survived, because he knows that there are others that weren't so lucky. It's pretty cool, bro, but did I ask? But you're not wrong. Millions of people all over the world live without access to healthcare. Dave was lucky enough to walk out without having to pay a single penny. He gave a silent thank you to all the staff for taking such good care of him while he was sick, and hoped that they all stay safe. And that's Dave's story. I shared it with you all so you can hopefully understand how serious this disease is and encourage you to take every precaution to protect yourself and those around you. Stay tuned for next episode where we discuss how to protect yourself from the coronavirus. And of course, thank you for watching.